It's 21 after the hour. Good afternoon, everyone. Great to be with you today. Appreciate you tuning in. Hey, let's continue our conversation over the past few weeks, and we will continue this into the future. We're going to continue our series called Our Graceful Heritage, and I think it's a brilliant opportunity to take a look at the parallels of what's happening today in the 21st century within our own country and our culture at large, and the same challenges that often faced the early church, the early Christians, and how Christianity was able to rise above these problems, ultimately to prevail, to change the course of things, and even to change the law in many of these cases. And joining me right now is a longtime friend of the program. She's the author of these great articles, too, that you can check out at her website, edmundburkeinstitute.org. Her latest article is actually going to run on in the Washington Times, so look for that. It'll come out a little bit later this week. But joining me now, Dr. Grace Voto, founder and executive director of that Washington-based think tank, the Edmund Burke Institute, also a former editor there at the Washington Times. Hey, Grace, good afternoon. Welcome.
Hello, Drew. Great to be with you.
It's my pleasure. And your latest article, that is not going to be up, from what I understand, until later in the week, and people can find that at the Times?
That is correct. And the minute that it's up at the Times, we're going to post it on the Edmund Burke site as well as on your site, on the Relevant Radio site.
And the article is called Sliding Towards Infanticide.
That is correct.
Well, you know, here's an issue. When the issue came up, I said to my producer, oh, my gosh, I feel like all I do is talk about pro-life issues and life issues. But, you know, we live in a culture of death today, and it's not much different, believe it or not, than the early church and the challenges that they faced. And I want to credit you for being so public about this and addressing it. I read your article in advance of it going into the Times. I got to say, extremely well done, and I'm actually quite surprised that the Times have embraced it so strongly. Did that surprise you at all?
It did surprise me. In fact, I was ready to post it on our site, and I was strongly encouraged by the president of the Institute, Jeff Cooner. He said, this has just got to have a national circulation. So he immediately sent it to the editor, and we got a response really within a minute. And I think it was because the editor himself, Brett Decker, is a practicing Catholic and also very astute historically. So he recognized that everything that I write in this piece has not been, widely dispersed, and it's knowledge and information that needs to get onto a national forum. See,
this is how the Catholics and early Christians changed the culture. I guess they had people in important places as well. If you get some good Catholics at the Times who are open to, allowing distribution of truth, that's fantastic. That's how we'll educate and ultimately transform the country. Hey, Grace, you talk in your article about the current administration right now, and you say that they have come to power and they have relentlessly expanded the power of the state to provide financial assistance to pregnant women who want to abort their fetuses, and this renders every American citizen complicit with these heinous acts. Let's talk about that a little bit. Do you see the president trying to expand his agenda, and if so, why? I mean, what's so important about this agenda that he's throwing so much behind it?
You know, this is, again, what I consider to be a reversal of how Obama presented himself during the campaign. If you remember, while he was campaigning, he really reached out to a lot of Christian groups. And although it was widely known that he himself is pro-choice, he presented himself as someone that was going to work very hard to try to find some kind of a consensus between pro-choicers and pro-lifers to try to at least reduce the numbers of abortion. That's what he said he was going to do. However, the minute he came to power, we see that he's not doing that at all. In fact, every time he makes some kind of legislative move, it's always in the direction of expanding the accessibility to abortion for women both here in America and abroad. So he is just relentlessly breaking down the barriers, facilitating the ability for women to get abortions.
Did he lie Did he lie on the issue of abortion? And I think you're right. If you go back and you remember what the president said, do you remember how the president promised that his health care legislation wouldn't cover abortion, or he promised that all the stuff with the Stupak Amendment, of course, which was later abandoned. You remember how how the deal in abandoning the Stupak Amendment involved a presidential order that would keep federal dollars from going to abortion, or how pro-life legal experts said that the president's order wasn't worth the paper it was written on. Remember all that type of stuff that went on? Well, of course, the Obama administration has officially approved, the first instance of taxpayer-funded abortions under a new national government-run health care program right now. And I see the president having lied on every single solitary point when it comes to life. He even made that comment about his own daughters, how he would never want them burdened, with what did he say, with a child or a pregnancy? I don't quite remember the exact quote, but I was shocked as a man who has daughters himself, why he would be so adamant in putting, in exporting our woundedness and making it so available here in this country.
Well, you're right. The phrase he used was that he didn't want his children or
punished.
His daughter to be punished
That's
with
it.
a baby,
Yep.
something
Punished.
to that extent.
You're right.
And, the great issue when we were debating Obamacare was that the pro-life Democrats were possibly going to try to preserve the Hyde Amendment, which prevents federal dollars going to fund abortions. Well, in all those negotiations, the Hyde Amendment was basically ditched, and the pro-life Democrats caved to the demands of the president. Recently, what we see is that some states like Maryland and Pennsylvania and New Mexico, as they're trying to implement Obamacare, they were going to send federal funds to possibly finance abortions. And there was a huge outcry by pro-life groups. The president himself issued an executive order saying that this was not going to happen, that federal funds are not going to go to the states as they create these high-risk pools. And there seems to be some attempt to halt this procedure. Nonetheless, as Obamacare creates this massive bureaucracy, it is very, very clear by those pro-lifers who have carefully examined the legislation that it's going to be almost impossible to prevent federal funds from going to finance abortions. And what this means is that we have now destroyed the very delicate balance we had achieved since 1976 when the Hyde Amendment was passed. When that amendment was attached to every appropriation bill banning federal funds used for abortion. Basically, the nation was divided between those who accepted Roe v. Wade, accepted to participate in the pro-choice movement, and those who conscientiously objected and could object even with their tax dollars. But we are now moving very, very quickly towards a state where our tax dollars will go towards abortions, and that means that we are all of us complicit in our labor and through our taxes. We are all complicit in the killing of the unborn.
So I wonder what it will come to. You think Americans will eventually get to the point, or where the bishops may even challenge them to conscientiously object to a certain portion of their taxes, portion that may go towards the killing of innocent life?
Well, I think that's a very, very good argument that is probably going to come forward because it is a violation of our religious rights as Christians.
Right.
But I think one of the things that we can do right away is demand statutory protection right away. There's a bill in Congress that's being advanced very vigorously to try to prevent the use of federal funds for abortions. I think that's one of the first lines of battle that we have to win. If we don't win it, we're going to continue, or we're going to slide very quickly towards this the expansion of Obamacare in such a way that we're all going to be complicit in the funding of abortion.
Grace, I only have a few moments, or not even that, a few seconds before I go to break, but just on a base level, I always marvel at why people push this so hard. Do they, in some way, think that what they're doing is actually a good? Do they really see the harm in this? I mean, I can't imagine somebody embracing this type of ideology.
Oh, they think it's absolutely to the good. They are convinced that they have virtue and that we who are trying to prevent this are the evil ones because they believe that this empowers women and in some cases it will lift them out of poverty. As Obama says, babies are something that women are punished with.
My guest today, Dr. Grace Voto. We'll be back.